Welcome to Get Serious. Today, again, we've been in this industry a long time here, and something new with every property that we get deeper into DD for. So this one is super exciting, has a ton of profit margin built in, maybe the most that we've ever seen a property, like roughly 500 grand of gross profit, potentially, maybe a little bit less conservatively here, but like very conservatively, at least to double, like a 3K buy price. So it's in Florida with access to the Gulf waterfront property. So, tough properties to find, even tougher to actually get real discounts on them, just given, the demand. And I know Florida's probably the roughest state in the country right now when it comes to both housing and land prices in regard to just facing a lot of downward pressure due to a number of reasons. But nevertheless, for pristine and prime properties, there are still great opportunities there. Especially when, again, you just have to consider the underlying comps. All comes back to comps, right? So very, very cool property to get an opportunity to potentially purchase. Again, it's just, right time, right place. Distress is starting to enter the market for a number of folks. I was seeing some other reports like FHA loans are at about 12% now that are delinquent. Is that turning into exact foreclosures? No, foreclosures is more of a lagging indicator compared to the leading indicator of delinquencies, but a lot of those foreclosure protections are going by the wayside, I want to say, within the next couple months, something like that. So we just have to be more aware, like there's going to be more distress entering the market, and that's where those opportunities are still going to lie. So, and this is why, like, I'm kind of glad that we have a number of opportunities. There's still a number of folks that are reaching out for like sub 50K purchase price deals. And it's like, it's so easy for us to revert, we could do more volume, just like say yes to some more of these, continue to review. But I just kept saying, no, like the only way for us to continue to grow is go after larger deals. And like, if we have to sit on some liquidity for a while, I would rather do that so we can jump on the bigger opportunities. And here we go, like a fairly quick close at 3K. Like there's just not a lot of funders who can do that effectively. And again, this is like kind of the bane of my existence, our infill lot. So it's like, oh my gosh, we have to make sure something this expensive, like we do not miss anything that could potentially dissuade a potential buyer from purchasing this, at least at an amount that we won't lose money on it. And it seems like all those protections are in place here. So I could do kind of a full review of the lot, but the most unique factor about this one is that we had a realtor go out there and we could see within the photos that were taken on the lot, there's these 4 kind of roped off little area, and it's kind of crazy because this is just like it is the most kind of cookie cutter infill lot you can imagine, where it's just grass, and it has access to like kind of a dock with a seawall, so water access there, but there's really no even other trees on it, so it's like flat, the grass. Basic infill lot here, just under 0.4 acres, and there's these little 4 roped off areas that are kind of like raised grass portions that appear to be owl burrows, and it's a protected species. Now, off the top of my mind, I can't forget exactly, but I think they're just called burrowing owls, something like that. And we, when you run into properties with some type of like endangered species, like usually Florida is a key culprit there, turtles or what have you, that can cause a lot of complications for potential development of the lot. And in this case, I mean, again, it's just kind of crazy where you're in the middle of like a almost completely developed subdivision on an island, and there's just these 4 random burrows for owls. So we really had to figure out, okay, what is going on here? Are they active or not? Is this going to prevent some type of development? Is the lot even buildable? Like that's the number one question, right? Like, is there anything that could prevent the lot from being buildable? because then all of a sudden the lot becomes, or just dramatically loses value, or doesn't have any value at all, especially when we're risking a potential $350K cash purchase. Like, we just can't mess that up. So we were working with the realtor, as well as figuring out, okay, all these different guidelines for these owls here. And, this is another avenue where you can, heavily utilize ChatGPT, Claude, take your pick. And so, we were just, adding all those PDFs in and doing like very deep context search. And again, it's everything that like Callan will teach, and, his proper use of AI is treating it as a thought partner and like providing that full context. Like, hey, I need you to fully review this. I need to understand like all the various practicalities of what happens when there's these owls on the property. And like, most importantly, can the buildability of the property be permanently impacted by these owls? Like, if you don't answer any other question, like, that is the number one thing that needs to be answered. And it pretty clearly showed no. Our routes to remove the owls if needed. And it kind of provided a whole bunch of guidelines to do so. Like, again, this might be outside the scope of the full podcast, but, for the most part, the only thing that can prevent owls from being moved is if there's, eggs or little owlets. And, rarely they take longer than, 2 to 3 months at most to be able to fly away. But, if there's just adults there's no, little baby owls, then, the burrows can be moved, and the owner of the property can mitigate the habitat impact by either paying a financial contribution, just like $2,000, or they can pay a little bit less than that, but also try to set up some other burrows on the property that are outside the building footprint or maybe elsewhere. I'm not exactly sure about that. So there's routes to, both handle the removal of existing burrows, so long as they're not like hosting little baby owls, and, trying to, kind of play fair game. Okay, financial contribution for the removal, et cetera. Like, there's a whole bunch of biologists and experts about this, which I think, again, like, we should be mindful, like, humans were, consistently disrupting the environment more than enough as it already is. So like, but if you want to build a house like on an infill lot, like, it's a legal activity, you pay all this money for it, and okay, what can we do to have the owls move on? But we're still trying to like mitigate the impact as much as possible there. So kind of interesting the way they handle this, but this process can't even get started. Like, you can't just go ahead and remove the burrows until you have a development permit in hand. And so they try to save it to the last minute as much as possible. Like, hey, you need to like be constructing, starting to break ground within 48 hours of moving the owls. So it's like they're trying to disrupt them as little as possible, to really ensure people are super serious about actually building the land, so they're not moving the owls for just kind of on a whim, or if people change their mind. And so I kind of appreciate that line of thinking there. So ultimately, we were able to go through, back and forth with AI. Plus, we got in contact with, some of the biologists and some of the people who are directly involved with this. Again, just confirm everything. Even though we see stuff in writing, and even getting the responses back from AI, like AI, hallucinates less now. But like, I'll always go back and ask, okay, I need you to actually quote from the guidelines, from the written materials we sent you yourself, like, show me exactly where it says such and such piece of info. So that's just the way to use it properly. Then we go ahead and confirm it with the people working directly at those departments, usually more than a handful of them, to again 100% confirm that even in like the most edge case scenario, there is no permanent prevention from being able to build on the property. Like, that's really the only question that matters, right? Everything else can be sorted out, and buyer can, deal with a time delay, a little bit of, nominal, if they're going to be buying a property for almost $1 million, $2,000 to move some owls is not a big deal. So that was an open question there. The seawall also needs repair. That's probably going to be like another $40,000 or so. But again, like, we can account for that for, with the margin that we have in the deal to just consider it. So, this is another one that's just like, you've got to be ready to strike. I'm seeing this late at night and just getting like super excited about, wow, okay, we're getting something very, very, very to come down the pipe here, and it is all lining up. But again, just walking you through endangered species owls here, like it's a totally new situation. That even though we've done, hundreds properties at this point and reviewed, thousands, like understand, okay, there is a process to figure out how do we solve this from a DD perspective and understand, okay, what are the key questions to ask to ensure that it's a property we can successfully purchase without potentially catastrophically risking our money in a situation like this. So even if you encounter a situation you've never seen before, you can understand what the pathways and the guidelines are to arrive at the right answer in relatively short order. I thought this was a pretty interesting one to deal with, not just from like the size of the deal, but yeah, like how do we handle some of these endangered species situations here? And so I appreciate the team from the land investor we're working with for handling a lot of this back and forth. Again, obviously a ton of money at stake here on the deal, so we will double, triple, quadruple check to make sure that we aren't missing anything. So hopefully this is helpful for your own review here. SeriousLand.capital for any of your funding needs. Please send us more big ones to go after. Land Daily Diligence Facebook group for zero cost review of your land deals, and landpricer.ai for the most reliable land pricing tool in the market. I was just testing it even more now on that lot in Florida. Like it is performing very well here. So engineering team is continuing to work on it. I know I said end of September. We'll probably be now closer to mid-October here to really polish up the UI and the UX. But I am working on it, and our engineering team is working on it daily to get this all set up for you guys. So looking forward to it. Subscribe and share. Again, take a look at the links for Callan's AI Bootcamp. You just heard some more examples on how I'm using those skills on a day-to-day basis. It's like no, fluff or using AI. No, this is like directly impacting how we work in our business every single day. So it's an invaluable tool. If you want to learn from the best, go ahead and click that link. It's $100 or 97, whatever, to join the boot camp. Like I would have paid $1,000 earlier this year if I had to do it over again here. So like it's no brainer as it gets to learn from the best. If you really like it, how Callan teaches, then you'll be able to join her Accelerate to Automate. That's the meat and potatoes course, 10 weeks, starting in late October. So go ahead and check that out. Subscribe and share. Take care, everybody.